Welcome back, everybody, to Constructive Uncoupling, the podcast devoted to amicable divorces. I'm Judy Weigel, your amicable divorce expert. Why? Because that's all I do, amicable divorces. I'm a divorce mediator and what is called a legal document assistant. I work in Los Angeles, California. I file for amicable divorces and I mediate amicable divorces. Amicable really only means you can talk to one another, enough to get settlement decisions done, and nobody feels the other is hiding significant assets. Other than that, it's really hard. Even amicable divorces are so very hard. So today we're doing part 2 of the podcast, my previous episode, which was establishing control and removing fear. And what we were saying on the previous podcast was control is so vitally important in our daily lives. If we don't feel like we have control, we don't feel happy or connected or sane. We need to feel in control just to feel sane. So without divorce, it's really hard feeling like we're in control because, as we know, we really don't have control over anything but our own decision making and our emotional reactions to any life occurrence and any relationship. That's all we have is our emotional control and the way we respond. And so in a divorce, everything is whacked out. We completely feel out of control in every aspect of our lives, and therefore we live in fear. And what I want to do is remove the fear, identify the areas in which we will feel out of control, and show you some remedies. So in the previous episode, we did 5 areas of control. We did control over communication, control over decision making, control over money, control over your lawyer, and control over the legal system. And so today we're going to talk about control of information, control of your emotions, control over the outcome of the settlement, control of custody in the co-parenting plan, and control of fear. And when I say control, I don't mean that you're controlling the other person. What I'm saying is you need to feel you have control over yourself and how you're going to function in the areas I just mentioned. So let's go with control of information. So we're talking about information that you have to provide about your assets and debts and your finances, information that your husband or your spouse is going to provide. Will he or she be accurate and clear and truthful? Will he or she provide all the right support documentation? How much personal information will be divulged? Will it be embarrassing to you? Will it be truthful information that's going to be divulged? Every state is different in terms of their divorce laws, but since I live in California and work in California, we have a no-fault divorce state, so we don't have to explain why we're getting divorced, which is fabulous. But if there is anything like domestic violence or drug use, that really does have to be divulged, especially if there are children. If there aren't any children, it really doesn't matter. But if there are children, this very personal information has to be exposed and dealt with, obviously for the children's best interest. And then information in the legal realm. There's information you need to know and understand in order to make settlement decisions. So it's overwhelming. Literally stops people in their tracks. They don't know where to start. So here's where I start. One step at a time. So if you have children, you have to deal with that first. You have to deal with the money and the co-parenting plan so that you can establish child support. And when you're giving information through the disclosure forms or through your attorneys, if you have to hire attorneys, provide it as accurately as humanly possible. Because if you don't, now you're worrying about not being truthful. And it's always going to work against your best interest. So just provide the information. Don't hide it. Let it be what it is. And if you have attorneys that you're working with, make sure you have the legal information that you need in order to make the decisions that you have to make. You deal with your spouse's information. You're able to respond to your spouse's information. So you're exchanging information through disclosure forms and maybe through mini hearings of some sort. You have an opportunity to respond to your spouse's information. So if your spouse isn't providing what you know to be accurate information, you honestly have the opportunity to respond to that. So don't get upset. Just look at it and just respond to it. The emotion that you feel will have no significance on the accuracy of the information. So just start training yourself to be calm, to take one step at a time, to give your response accurately, succinctly, and the system will take over for you. And don't worry about personal information. You know what? There's no privacy anyway in this world, is there? I mean, people can Google where we live. Heaven knows what we're being recorded on our cell phones, on Siri. I mean, every day I hear these stories in the news. And there's a point with me, I even said, okay, it is what it is. Let me just live the life I can live in the best way possible, and whatever information is out there about me, it is. My Yelp page, I have 2 horrifying reviews on my Yelp page. Horrifying beyond belief. I can't even imagine that I'm the person they're describing. I don't even know the person they're describing. But you know what? I used it in my best interest. I decided to do this podcast. That was my remedy to information that I found to be very damaging to myself, to me, to my business, and to my pride center. Because I actually pride myself on doing a great job for people and wanting to do a great job. But I can't prevent people from disparaging me. And so that was my learning lesson in controlling information. I can't. All I can do is the best I can do and let the chips fall where they may. Everything will work out in the end if I just get up every day and do the best job I can possibly do. And so I just share that with all of you. Do the best you can do in divorce. Deal with information as it comes out and move forward. Next, control of your emotions. My gosh, if we can control our emotions every day, if we can control our responses to things, we are really in control. We're in control of our happiness to a large extent. So divorce is an emotional roller coaster, and the tickets are very expensive. You'll have good days, you'll have bad days. And it is what it is. And so just expect it so you're not surprised, and just say, okay, this is one of my bad days. You also have inner emotions that you're dealing with that you try and keep to yourself because, listen, at a certain point, nobody wants to hear us. Even our best friends, even our pets don't want to hear us complain at a certain point. So we have our inner emotions that we're trying to deal with so that we can get up every day through the divorce, so we can go to work, so we can parent our children, so we could possibly have a life. And then you have the emotions that are ignited when you have to speak with your spouse. And isn't it like putting your head in the lion's mouth? Like walking an emotional tightrope? or engaging in an emotional juggling match. So I used to work for the Clyde Beatty Cole Brothers Circus back in the 80s. And these circus metaphors are so wonderful in the area of divorce because, in a circus you have all these different acts, 3-ring circus, 3 acts at the same time, lots of activity. And that's what it feels like when we're getting divorced. I mean, we have to get up and do our jobs. If we have children, we have to take care of them, school, activities. And then we have this divorce. We have to deal with our spouse. Our family wants to know what's going on. It's a shit show. It's really unbelievable. And so these circus metaphors are fabulous. But if you can just control your communication, it goes back to communication. Your inner dialogue with yourself. Don't beat yourself up. Be honest about your part in the divorce, in the marriage. Accept it as a learning lesson to move on. You can forgive your spouse. Or if you haven't gotten to forgiveness yet, you can at least take the first step, and that is try not to blame. Use divorce as a new beginning. Use divorce as a learning lesson. And that's what I put in my confirmation emails when I schedule a meeting. I put divorce as a new beginning because it is. So it's a very tough situation. I had the most amicable divorce known to mankind, and it was the saddest year of my life until I just snapped out of it. So how did I snap out of it? Because I did have to go to work each day, and I didn't have children, so I had the easiest of all divorces. I was making a good living. He didn't want spousal support. I didn't want spousal support, but it was still so emotional and sad. So I did not blame. I didn't feel the need to blame, and I was asked for the divorce, and it shocked me beyond belief, although I knew we had things to work on, and so that may be your situation as well. But I didn't want to blame. That was an emotion I didn't want to use, or I didn't want to access that energy. It didn't feel like it would be positive for me, and I just wanted to do everything positive. So along with just keeping to myself and not talking about this all the time, I exercised. I walked every day. And that was great because exercising activates the endorphins. The endorphins make you feel better. And I think within a year, that's why I rallied and I said, okay, I can do this. I'm fine now. I can finish this up. And if you really need help, I do recommend therapy. I do recommend a professional you can talk with. Soon, I'm going to have Dr. Kathy Memel back on the program. And Kathy's going to talk about how she deals with mediating divorcing spouses or doing co-parenting plans for divorcing spouses, and they're not able to talk to one another, and there's a lot of animosity. And she's going to talk about one of the methods she uses for each person to get back in touch with themselves, to see why they're reacting the way they're reacting. It's a wonderful method. And she has seen brilliant results at this. Once we start taking responsibility for our actions, once we start understanding that our actions and the actions of our spouse come from what we learned as children, what our experiences were in our families, we can start understanding and accepting a little bit more the behavior that we have found reprehensible, difficult to deal with, and we can start putting it in perspective. And when we do that, we are now in control of our emotions. And that's where we want to get to, is just get centered with ourselves and use divorce as a learning experience. Number 3, control over the outcome of the settlement. So everybody is worried about the settlement. The settlement contains the division of assets and debts, spousal support, the parenting plan if you have children, custody, and then handling our daily expenses. So it's huge because it's life-changing. This whole settlement is life-changing. And unless you need a judge to make decisions, you have all the control you need, even if your spouse has a horrifying attorney, because it's your spouse who has to make decisions ultimately, even through his or her attorney. So you have control over what your decisions will be in the settlement. And the settlement is a negotiation. You can do it through your lawyers, you can do it through a mediator, you can do it with each other. Just sit down when you can finally get to a point of being able to talk to one another, and maybe you're at that point now, hopefully you are. You can sit down and you can just talk. Well, this is what I would like and this is why. And then your spouse will talk, this is what I would like and this is why. I do suggest not to use the word fair, and here is why. Fair is a fighting word. Fair is a subjective concept. What is fair to you may not be fair to your spouse. And I know people say, well, I've read the law and I've gotten some legal counsel, and so I know what is fair under the law. But here's the backdrop to fair. It's the marriage. Whatever transpired in the marriage is going to be the backdrop for what each person thinks is fair. And so that what I do when I'm talking to people is I say, use logic. Look at what you would like. Please learn the law first. I can't say this enough times. Learn the law, and then look at your marriage. Look at the concessions that were made by you or your spouse. Look at how you both handled money, how you both handled decisions about how you conducted your lives. And then start making decisions for settlement based on that. Now, if money is a priority, if one person made nothing because they were raising the family and it was a very, very past traditional marriage where one person worked and the other person didn't, well, you definitely need money, and you need money immediately. And so that really has to be dealt with first when you're organizing what you want to do with the settlement. You want to calm your daily living expenses and the handling of money. You need to tackle that first and then go into asset division second. If asset division is huge, like I just worked on a $25 million settlement where there wasn't one argument. They just divided their estate, $25 million down the middle, $12,500 for you, $12,500 for you. There were minor children, but because the settlement was so huge, the attorneys recommended that there probably wouldn't be spousal support. This is from the attorneys, not me, with the amount of the settlement. So, there are nuances in settlement. But if you're the normal person who doesn't have a $25 million estate to settle, you're going to need to know that that part of your settlement has been taken care of first so that your daily living expenses can be met, and then you can be clear about anything else you have to divide. So there's no need to rush, but don't purposely drag your feet. That's the worst thing that people can do, is drag their feet. Now, I know it's an emotional roller coaster, and on a roller coaster, you go slow as you're climbing up the incline, and then you quickly go down the incline. And then you may spin around a couple turns, and then you go slowly up the incline again, and then quickly down the incline. What you want to do is make thoughtful decisions so you can feel in control, so you can be happy about the decisions you made, and you don't second guess yourself too much. I know we all do, but not too much. And so that takes a little bit of time, but don't punish your spouse by not providing your paperwork. And if you're the one that needs child and or spousal support, and your spouse isn't providing the paperwork, you may need legal assistance on that, and you may need to go to a hearing for that. But, it is what it is. So just know timing is of the essence, and think through what you would like before you ask for it. Be prepared to explain your thinking. because your spouse needs to hear the logic. And decisions will get made. I mean, that is what divorce is. Decisions will get made. So just make sure that you're careful every step of the way. Number 4, control of custody in the co-parenting plan. Well, aren't those the biggest decisions of all? Yes, money, we need to live on money, but oh my gosh, our children are our most cherished entities. So the co-parenting plan and the level of custody is so very important. And I am sure that there's a lot of panic within these decisions. But even though this is the heartbreak of all control issues, the time you spend with your children, if your spouse isn't the worst human walking the face of the earth, if your spouse really likes the children, and the children like their parent, you're both going to share time. And you know what's interesting about sharing time that I never really got until, and please don't laugh, until I was watching the Orange County Housewives, and Tamara, who's been married, 3 times now, but she was getting divorced for the 2nd time, she was explaining on the show that the worst part of dividing time with the children's father was the silence in the house when she didn't have the kids. And because my background is music and sound is very important to me, and I don't have children, but I got it. Through the issue of sound, I know how sound affects me. I know how music affects people. And if you're a parent, I can totally understand what the silence of not having the children in the house will do to you and how sad that can be. But you're going to be dividing time. So let's just say you were a stay-at-home mom and you have to give time up to the father, even though the father may not have spent a lot of time with the children. Maybe the father was one of these typical LA people that was a type A person and worked constantly. Why? Because it's so bloody expensive to live in LA. And if you have a great work ethic, you're going to be working all the time. But you have to remember that in a divorce, as opposed to when you are married, and even though the father, I'm using it because that's the more traditional role, may only come home later at night, at least there's a present in the house. And the kids know he's there. But when there's 2 households, the kids have to spend time with their other parent. They just have to. It's important for the emotional well-being and development of the children that they have time with both parents. So while you may want to say, and it's different at varying ages, I mean infancy breastfeeding versus teenagers, I mean there are different considerations depending on the age of the child. And I know moms that breastfeed can't imagine that if they had to use a judge to decide on the visitation schedule, they can't imagine that a judge would allow an infant breastfeeding to be with the other parent and judges decide to just bring more breast milk, just have more breast milk available. It really will be surprising to you, so why fight it? If the father or the other parent agrees that in the breastfeeding years the child should be overnights with the mom, great, excellent, don't fight it. And then just make sure that the other parent is able to be attached. But, you have to make decisions about what you think the appropriate amount of time is. And, the children, when they're at each parent's house, need to spend time with the parent. And so that's also really concerning to mom, at least, that if the children are at the other parent's house, is the other parent really spending quality time with them? Especially if the other parent wasn't the one spending quality time before. And it's a legitimate concern. Talk about it. Talk about the things that are concerning to you, but listen to what the remedies are from the other parent. Maybe the remedies are good. So I was in a divorce mediation all about parenting time. And we were talking about, I believe it was a 3-year-old in this case. And she really wasn't a stay-at-home mom. She was going to school. But she had the attachment theory of parenting. So look it up on Google. The attachment theory of parenting is how the child gets attached to the mother first and then the other parent after that. And it's very involved. But she didn't want the father to have overnights. And the father broke down and cried in the mediation because the thought of not being with his child was devastating to him. And I have never seen a father that emotional over their child. I've seen fathers say, no, 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 no. I love my child. And you could tell it was a nurturing person. But I've never seen a father literally break down and cry. And that, in and of itself, moved the heart of the mom. And then the dad even offered to take cooking classes so that he could cook for the child. He wanted the recipes that the mother was using. I mean, he was ready to go the extra mile. I'm getting chills while I'm even talking about this. It was such a wonderful thing to experience, but the mom was still stuck on the attachment theory. So we did a step-up plan. You know, we used, okay, a limited overnight now, and then more later. And that satisfied everybody. But it has to be talked out. And there's a reality about your worries, your concerns. If they're valid, you have to talk about them. And if they're just because you were the parent that took care of the children, most of the time it's understandable that you're concerned that the other parent won't know what they're doing. But you have to help the other parent then know what they're doing. And that's really an interesting idea. See what you can do to help. Don't put a wall up. If you extend yourself as the mom who's been the one, if you're the mom or the dad who was the stay-at-home dad, if it was a little more modern and less traditional, because that really does happen, and fabulous for the dads who are stay-at-home dads and can work from home. So be the parent who's involved. And say, I'll do whatever I can to make the transition easy for the child, for us, and be prepared to be flexible. Both of you, both parents. You need to be flexible because with the best intentions, whatever the plan is may not work for the child. You have to look at what the child's schedule is first, then look at your schedule second, and how can your schedule support your children. But the bottom line is, communication is key. The way you communicate, and I keep going back to this in every single issue of control, the way you communicate will make it or break it for all of these decisions. Obviously, there's a special example if the other parent is a victim of substance abuse or pornography or issues that would really be against the health and welfare of the child. That really has to be brought up too. And you have to look at getting that parent help first and then leaving it open to once that parent has gotten themselves cleaned up and can stand up, that yes, let's have you be a functional parent in this relationship. So you have to give that person hope. I guess that's all I want to say about that. Lastly, number 5, control of fear. And that's where this is all heading. I want you to get fear out of the equation. So fear would be of the unknown, of your spouse's new behavior. So we all establish new behavior once divorce is upon us. And we have new behavior because we're kind of standing on opposite sides of a settlement decision. And one of us will speak up for ourselves more than we normally did maybe. We'll both be in fear mode, so we may be argumentative. And in the book that I've been promoting, The Good Karma Divorce, Judge Lawrence talks about when we behave differently in a divorce, it's because we're feeling our way. And in order to protect ourselves, because yes, we go into protective mode, we behave in a way that we feel protects us and put walls up. Expect it, and then your communication will work towards melting the walls. But you really are both establishing different roles. And so just work with each other establishing different roles. Your fear may come out of feeling out of control, especially if you didn't initiate the divorce. Yes, so then there are trust issues that come into play if you didn't initiate the divorce. Feeling in fear because your life will be your own. You won't have somebody else to bounce things off of, to maybe take some of the pressure off of you. So there's so much fear in being alone. And will you ever be able to trust anyone again? So to all of that, say okay. Acknowledge fear. And now, how do we get rid of fear? Well, after you acknowledge, yes, I'm in fear. Now, let's take one step at a time. Let's take one issue at a time. First of all, let's get the tension out of our bodies. Be aware of the tension in your body and purposefully relax. Breathe slowly. Don't rush through your day with aggressive physical movements. I know when I'm feeling stressed in the office and I have a lot to do, my heart starts racing and I even walk faster. When I want to calm down, I just walk slowly. I start forcing myself to think slowly, and I force myself to speak slowly. And then my body calms down. Know that you can manage your emotions if you choose to. It is a choice. I want to manage my emotions. I want to calm down. It's up to you how you respond. And we go back to divorce is a new beginning. And so one of the ways to get fear out is to say, okay, I acknowledge that I cannot control those things that happen to me, those things that are presented to me. And if you were the one that did not initiate the divorce, yes, you really do feel like you're out of control. But that's okay. It's going to be what it is. Relax. Make sure that you learn what you need to learn. Don't let anybody force you to speak before you're ready, but don't drag your feet either. Be conscious of time. Within time, all decisions get made. Know that everybody is fearful. You're not alone. Even your soon-to-be ex is fearful. They may not act like they're fearful. Well, you know he's a narcissist or she's a narcissist. Everything has to be their way. They're still in fear mode. By doing what they do as a narcissist and trying to exercise control, that's to cover up fear. That's to cover up so they won't be out of control, because that's the most fearful thing to them, being out of control. You can hire a divorce coach. You can hire a divorce therapist. When you have somebody conciliatory working with you throughout divorce, they will really help to calm you down and to take fear away. And again, know that you have decision-making power. And keep telling yourself that. You are not out of control. You do have decisions you can make. And even if you have to go to court and the judge renders a decision that you absolutely hate, unless it's something that you know puts your children in harm, I mean, I can't imagine that situation. That's a category unto itself, and that is enormous fear. Other than that, everything is manageable. And if you don't get the financial settlement that you want, it's just stuff. It's just stuff. You can make money. If you're capable of earning a living, you can make money. Everything happens for a reason. This is the last thing I want to tell you. Everything happens for a reason. Use divorce to grow. In divorce, you'll be forced to look at yourself and your life through the eyes of your attorney, your soon-to-be ex, your ex's attorney, the legal system, your friends and family, but most importantly, you. And if you can use divorce as a mirror of self-reflection and use it to better yourself, use it for a positive, you will approach all of those 10 items that I named in the previous podcast and this one. You'll use them to grow and benefit, and then you can transfer this into other aspects of your life, and you will be happier than you ever thought you could be. Thank you so much for joining me on this podcast, part 2, Establishing Control, Removing Fear. This is Judy Weigel, your amicable divorce expert, a divorce mediator, a legal document assistant in Los Angeles. And you know you can reach me through my email for any comments or any suggestions on topics. My email is Judy, Judy, at divorceresourceinc.com. Judy, Judy at divorceresourceinc.com. Thank you so much for joining me, and I look forward to our next episode.